welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be comparing the electric throttles for the SurRon. And the throttles that we will be comparing is the stock throttle that comes on the bike, the Domino throttle, and the Magura throttle. Now, we'll post a link to these in the description of the video so you can check there. The things that we will be considering when we're comparing these throttles, for one, is the stiffness or resistance or snappiness that the throttle has. As you can see, the Domino is pretty snappy there. We'll also be considering how smooth the rotation of the throttle is. And we'll also be taking a look at the ease of installation and, most importantly, the amount of rotation that the throttle has to go from no throttle to full throttle. The final thing we'll be comparing is the cost, including the tuning sessions. Before December 2019, the SurRon had a cable throttle that ran into a potentiometer, and then when the SurRon X Black Edition came out, around that period of time of December 2019, they moved to a fully electric throttle. This is the throttle that you see on my bike here. When evaluating this throttle, it is smooth. I will give it that. There's no crunchiness to the rotation. It has a hard stop forward and backwards. And in addition, it's snappy due to how smooth it is, but there is practically no resistance in the twist. I mean, if you see here, just with two fingers, I can move it with a lot of ease. This is free, obviously, because it comes on the bike. You don't have to install it. These are all major advantages to staying with the stock throttle. In addition, there is no retuning needed, and it's obviously the simplest option. If you're able to keep this, and you're happy with it, then that's fine. Two major gripes that I have with the stock throttle is the stiffness, which is not stiff at all. Can make it easy when you're going over rough stuff to get kind of, just grab too much throttle. You don't have as much control as something with a stiff spring that took, a deliberate twist to engage the throttle. The other gripe that I have is the amount of rotation from no throttle to full throttle. Why I don't like this is it makes it hard to control. If you're going over tight bumps or jumps and stuff, this is no throttle, and then full throttle is down here. You can see that I really have to move my wrist and drop my elbow down out of the ideal position to go full throttle. So if I'm going off a jump, it's very beneficial to have a shorter throw that's stiffer and easier to control, so I don't pop off and then get out of shape and potentially get off track or crash. And I think those are two things that we will be looking for in the aftermarket upgrades. First, we'll be showing you how to install the Magura throttle. So the first thing that you're going to want to do, and you should be doing this if you're ever working on any component of your bike's electrical system, is turn off your breaker and remove your battery. So the first step to installing the Magura throttle, since it comes with a connector that is plug and play for the SurRon, is going to be to remove the stock throttle and unplug it from the bike's electrical system. The easiest way to access this connector is to remove the bash guard. This is an aftermarket bash guard, but it should be the same process for almost all bash guards. And to do this, we're going to need a 5mm Allen. We're going to take the top bolts out, and we're going to try and loosen the bottom ones so we can swing it down. So we're going to loosen that one just a little bit. We're going to take this one all the way out, and then I'm going to do this on the other side. Now that I have the bolts removed on both sides and the bottom one's loosened, I'm going to try and swing this down, like so. And then we're probably going to want to take off this plastic shroud just so we can get into the electrical system a little bit easier. You're going to want to follow the wire from the throttle all the way down to where it plugs in to this connector right here. You can go ahead and just unplug it like that. You're going to want to cut away any zip ties that are holding this wire in place and preventing you from removing them. And then just keep following it up. Looks like we're going to have to undo the screw here for this one. Once you have the throttle disconnected, all you have to do is unscrew these two Allens. And this is a 4mm Allen wrench. You don't need to take them all the way out, just loosening it should be enough to pull it right off. And there you go, your stock throttle is removed. Now to put the Magura throttle on, it's essentially the reverse of the removal of the stock one. It's already loose, so we're just gonna slide it onto the handlebars there. I think that I'm gonna rotate mine kind of down close to the brake so it's out of the way. And then I'm gonna tighten it with not an Allen, but a Phillips screwdriver. Once it's nice and tight, we're gonna thread the wire back down, put it back through the routing hardware. So the nice thing about the Magura throttle is if you order the right one, it will come with a connector that is directly plug and play with the SurRon. So all you gotta do, plug it back in, tuck it away like the stock one, and reinstall your bracket. So first impressions of the Magura throttle is that it is a little bit stiffer than the stock one, but if the grip is touching the side of that, at all, the spring is not really strong enough to fight it. If you see, it kind of rolls back really slow if my thumb just grips it and then presses this part of the throttle or the grip against the throttle. It's really crunchy. It's crunchier than the stock one. I'm not super pleased with this, to be honest. And as far as the throw goes, this is a quarter turn throttle, which is the same as the stock. So we kind of have the same issue. It's not really any springier, possibly even worse if you consider, its resistance to the grip. I suppose you could, fix that by pulling it off a little bit more and, tying the grip on there so it doesn't slide back in. But this does not reduce the amount of, twist that my wrist has to go through. And it doesn't feel as smooth. I'm pretty disappointed with this. This is a lateral move at best. And I do want to say that this is the grip that came with the throttle. So you would think that it would, be a good fit, because typically when you put grips on, you want to put them all the way onto the throttle tube so you don't have stuff hanging off. There is currently grip hanging off at the end of this tube, and it is on too far, and the throttle is sticky. So this can be resolved. If I pull it back, it is a little bit snappier, but yeah, you would just hope that the grip that came with it would work a little bit better. There we go. It's a good snap there, but yeah, there we go. A little bit disappointing. Just a reminder that this throttle was $80 plus shipping. So all said and done, it was roughly $90, but that will change depending on where you live. And if you're our customer with our BAC controller kit, a retuning for your throttle is $35, and if you purchased your controller from somebody else, then the retuning fee is $75. And I just want to throw it out there that we are not testing this on the stock controller because neither of us still have our stock controller, and even if we did, we wouldn't be reinstalling it on the bike. We have heard from people that these aftermarket throttles do work with the stock controller. However, if you get an odd one that has some variation in the voltage range, it's possible that it may behave erratically and not have the engagement, you know, and off throttle points that it is necessary to function ideally. Now, we'll be showing you how to install the Domino throttle.
So for the Domino throttle, as you can see, this is the connector it comes with, which is obviously not the stock one. So what we did was we cut it as close as we could to the connector because we will not be using this. And there's also 5 wires going into this connector, whereas the stock bike uses 3. So you can just go ahead and cut those 2 other wires back a bit. They're the green ones. And then you just want to expose the black, white, and blue wires. And then you can go ahead and cut the stock throttle wire. And you're going to want to cut this one actually pretty close to the stock throttle because, as you can see, the length of the Domino throttle, not super long, so it can't run all the way down to the bash card or anything. So expose the wires on that end, expose the wires on this end, and then we'll mount it and solder everything together and then heat shrink it so it looks nice. So right off the bat, we noticed that the Domino is a lot smoother and it actually has like a little micro switch, as you can hear, which is a nice touch. And it feels a lot better internally, but one of the downfalls to this throttle is it's a fully plastic housing. And we noticed as we were installing it, there's these 2 clamping bolts here and then one down below. And I had them pretty tight, just, you know, expecting you want your throttle to be tight. And it actually clamped down on the rotating assembly in here so much that the throttle was starting to stick. So what I did was I backed both of them out, and now I'm gradually tightening each one back and forth and making sure that there's still smoothness to the throttle and that it's not sticking, because that's super dangerous. And then also running it loose is super dangerous for a different reason. So you might have to do this iterative process, and it's kind of annoying. And I would be willing to bet that an aluminum housing probably would have prevented that. So to hook the wires together, we're gonna have to do some soldering here. So the colors for this bike in particular is green to black on the Domino, black to white on the Domino, and red to blue on the Domino. And we are aware that there are different colored stock throttle wires. For those, you will have to do your own research. We only can show you what works for this because we can't do testing on other ones, but other people have done it, so I'm sure there is information out there if you do have different colors. And having a second hand to do this is helpful because everything's pretty tight. But remember, put heat shrink on your wires before you solder, because we're going to want to slide these over. And then also, you're going to want to grab a big piece of heat shrink to go over all 3 of them once everything's together.
Once you have each individual one shrinky dinked, you can slide the overall ones over now.
So as you can see on the Domino throttle, pretty, not an entirely different throw than the stock or the Magura. I would say it's more of like a 3/16 turn than a quarter turn. Certainly like not really an 1/8 turn, but overall definitely a reduced throw, like highly increased stiffness, feels better, and it's got that micro switch, just feels really nice, but just wish they would have done an aluminum housing over the plastic.
Alright, so this is basically the first impression of the Domino throttle. The first thing I noticed when I grab it, the tube feels noticeably like bigger around than the stock one. But having that smaller throw is definitely nice. Stiffness feels really nice. Super responsive. Yeah, first impressions are not a whole lot to complain about other than the installation. It's not exactly simple. but that's not really Domino's fault. Alright, there's a couple laps.
We appreciate the aluminum housing of the stock throttle, and what you get when you go to the Magura is maybe a slightly stiffer spring, but other than that, it's a fairly lateral move. We probably wouldn't purchase this again. Plastic throttle, not super smooth, and there's no decreased twist. With the Domino, it's snappier, so it's stiffer, and it has a decreased rotation. So if you're gonna get one, I'd say just go for the Domino. That being said, it is a lot more difficult to install than the Magura, and it costs a lot more money at $129. That being said, just a reminder, all of these will need to be tuned for their new throttle voltages, and I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel if you'd like to see more content like this. Thank you.